Stress, anxiety, and panic are not all in your head, as people are so fond of telling us when we're struggling. Your limbic system, which is the part of your brain that moderates the stress response, is connected to your brainstem. And your brainstem is connected to your nervous system. Your nervous system is basically what controls your body, and it's responsible for regulating things like heart rate, breathing, digestion, muscle tension, sensory functioning, movement, and a whole host of other bodily processes. The stress response is a physical and psychological response. It impacts your mind and your body. It impacts every element of your being, and it impacts it pretty dramatically. And a lot of people tend to overestimate and oversimplify how, quote, easy it should be to manage your stress, manage your anxiety, or maybe even to manage your panic attacks. The tools that many of us are taught or encouraged to use in stressful situations are a little bit like pouring a sippy cup of water on a raging bonfire. They are technically the right idea, but the intensity between the emotion and the intervention is a dramatic mismatch that barely moves the needle at all. They fall short for two reasons. One is that they only address one of the two domains in which you experience anxiety or stress, which again is the physiological domain and the psychological domain. The vast majority of relaxation tools only work in one of these areas. And so even if they are powerful enough to make a dent, you end up feeling a little bit better in like this part of yourself, but then another part of you feels no better whatsoever. For example, I have had many experiences in my life where I was having a full-blown mind and body stress response and used mental techniques like positive self-talk, for example, to try to calm myself down. And I could sometimes get to the point where mentally I was like, yeah, I probably am going to be fine. I know that I am blowing this out of proportion a little bit. And I believed it. And my body didn't change at all. And I was still physically panicking, and I still felt like I was going to throw up, and my heart was still going a million miles a minute. So you end up in like these two different states where you're feeling better and not feeling better at the same time. The second reason that most relaxation techniques don't really work, which I already kind of addressed with my bonfire metaphor to some degree, is there is an extreme mismatch in intensity. A stress response, to some degree, is the feeling that something life or death either is happening or could happen. It can be debilitating. It can be all-consuming. It isn't necessarily just like, oh, I'm a little worried right now. Like, you can literally, especially a panic attack, you literally feel like you could die. And then when people say like something like, talk nicely to yourself, or go for a walk, or take a few deep breaths. It's like, that is not an equivalently powerful resource to what I'm experiencing right now. And if you had felt this way, you'd know that. I have some tools that address both of these shortcomings for the majority of relaxation techniques. And I'm going to share those tools with you today. So this is going to be kind of a two-parter. First, I'm going to review some physiological and some psychological tools that assist with relaxation. Some of these may not be new to you, but please stick around because once I've reviewed those techniques, I'm going to tell you two ways you can use them that will actually make them a match, or at least close to a match, for what you feel during your most anxiety-provoking, most stressful, most panicky moments. There is a certain finesse to this. And if you know how to use these tools properly, they really, really can move the needle on your stress. If you don't, they won't do anything. So I'm going to do my top 3 physiological tools, my top 3 psychological tools, and then my 2 top secret, not really top secret, techniques for bringing them all together and making them actually work. So physically, breath work is absolutely critical for managing your stress response. The main reason for that, the reason breathing, I know it gets talked about a lot. I know you guys might be sick of hearing it, but it's talked about a lot for a reason. It is literally a hack to get your mind and your body to talk to one another. So all the functions of the autonomic nervous system, which is the part of your body that is impacted by stress and anxiety, they are all automatic processes. That's why it's called the autonomic nervous system. That means it's stuff your body does on its own without requiring conscious thought or input from you. You don't have to think about your heart to keep it beating. You don't have to think about digesting food to digest food. These things just happen. And all of them, other than breath, cannot be consciously directly controlled. You not only do you not have to think about your digestion and change how you're digesting food, you can't. You know, if you have a stomach ache, you can't just think, okay, brain, just digest this food more effectively. Come on now, let's stop the stomach ache stuff and let's just like do a better job of this. There's no mechanism to do that. Breathing is the only function of the autonomic nervous system which you have the ability to directly and consciously control. And that's why breath work is so critical to anxiety management, because your mind and your body are constantly in communication with one another. When your breath is rapid and shallow, your body is telling your brain, we are in trouble, we are in danger, and I am preparing to flee or defend myself from a threat. And this feedback loop of stress and anxiety occurs. When you force your breath to become slower and deeper, your mind, you are literally using your conscious mind to talk to your nervous system. And you are telling your nervous system, I know this feels really scary right now, but it's not what you think. We are actually going to be okay, and this is not as bad as it looks. If you try to say that to yourself using the words that I just used now, you're only addressing the psychological. Your nervous system will not understand that language, and it will not change how it's functioning. So being able to slow and deepen your breath is critical to getting your physiological stress response under control. Now, I mentioned that breathing is the only element of the autonomic nervous system that is directly consciously controllable. There is another function of the autonomic nervous system that is indirectly controllable, and that is your muscle tension. When we are really stressed out or really anxious, we get a lot of tightness. We get a lot of tension in our bodies. And again, that's because our bodies are preparing for action. They're getting ready to do something physical that they think they're going to have to do because we have so much stress in our systems that our bodies think we are in mortal danger. Usually, the thing stressing us out, hopefully, is not an imminent mortal danger situation. If it's something like, I think a person is mad at me, there's probably not a physical reaction. You cannot flee from an angry text message, right? I mean, not with your body, and you can like block the person or not read it, but you don't have to sprint away from your phone to get away from the stressor. And so your body builds up all this tension and tightness for this action it thinks it's going to have to take that it usually never does. And so the tension stays in your body. And again, just like with your breathing, your brain then says, the body is still tense, so the dangerous thing must not have happened yet, so we can't calm down yet. And you stay in this wound up, stressed out state for a prolonged period of time. If you engage in progressive muscle relaxation, you can actually relieve some of this tension that gets built up and often goes unused and help your body calm down. Progressive muscle relaxation, you can do it, in a guided manner, or you can just kind of wing it. It's not as technical as the name might make it sound. All it entails is basically tuning into your body and trying to figure out, okay, where am I holding my stress right now? Like, where do I feel this tension? Where do I feel this tightness? And then you actually increase the tension in that body part beyond where it's at, and that simulates use of the muscle tension and simulates a fight or flight response. Basically gives you a fake fight or flight response that reduces the muscle tension. So if I notice, I'm just going to use a part of my body that you guys can see since I'm on camera here. If I notice I have a lot of tension or tightness in my hands, what I would do is I would make fists. I'd clench my hands for a good probably 5 seconds or so. Obviously don't hurt yourself, but it has to be pretty firm. And then you let go. And you might, if you do that with me right now, you'll probably notice a little bit, even if your hands weren't tense, you'll notice your muscles feel a little bit loose or almost buttery, if that makes sense. You can clearly feel that some tension has been relieved. And you're probably gonna need to do it more than once. So I usually do multiple rounds of 5 seconds per body part. So it's just tension, count to 5, release. Tension, give it about a 5 count. I'm not gonna actually count to 5 because I'm just demonstrating, and release. And after several rounds of that, you should notice that this feeling of just calm and relaxation starts to come over your body, or at least the part of your body where you did the progressive muscle relaxation. And then you continue and you move on to another body part. And eventually your whole body should be feeling pretty calm and relaxed. It's a very, very powerful tool. My third physiological tool, this one's actually a category of tools that I recommend people use, are sensory resources. And so that could be things like listening to calming music, using aromatherapy, just anything, looking at a beautiful painting or a calming scene, anything that uses one of your five senses and creates a calming, relaxing input. One of my favorites, I'm a big smell guy. This is super cheesy, but this is a thing that I actually do every single day, is I like personal fragrance. Like most people would say cologne, although that's technically a concentration of it, and that doesn't just mean men's fragrance. I'm going to avoid that tangent for now. I bring a bottle of fragrance to work with me every day because it doesn't last all day long, and smelling that smell, whatever it is, I have several, really, really calms and relaxes me. So that's why I bring this. I just spray a spray on me every now and then. Parfums de Marly is not a corporate sponsor of today's video, although if you're watching this, you guys are my favorite fragrance house, so let me know, okay? But if you can find a smell or a certain, playlist or something like that that makes you feel calm and relaxed, sensory tools are very, very effective in calming physiological symptoms of stress or anxiety. On the psychological side of things, my top three in no particular order, number one would be meditation. Now, hear me out on this one because meditation describes a very wide range of tools. It's kind of like the word mindfulness. Like it can mean so many things. And many meditation practices or tools in general, in my opinion, are not appropriate for people struggling with mental illness. The stereotypical way of practicing meditation is to clear your mind or think of nothing. I don't recommend this for probably the vast majority of my audience. If you have PTSD and you try to clear your mind, you will probably have flashbacks or intrusive memories. If you have depression and you try to clear your mind, you will probably have regrets and self-loathing and self-hatred. If you have ADHD or anxiety and you try to clear your mind, your brain will laugh at you and say no. It just won't. So the clear your mind type of meditation, not my favorite for people who are struggling to manage their mental health. There are two principles I emphasize in using meditation for mental health purposes. One is use guided meditations instead of just these open-ended meditations so that you actually have something to focus on and not just nothing in a vacuum of stimulation, because that's not good for our brains. And the second is keep it brief, at least when you're starting out. Because a lot of people try to do these 15, 20-minute meditations when they've never done it before, and it's just, your brain's not ready for it, and it doesn't have the attention span for it. With regard to guided meditation, not all guided meditations are created equally. I had an intern, one of my interns, had cover a group for me a while back, and he decided to walk him through a guided meditation that he found on YouTube. Like, he just played the YouTube video, and it ended in tears of laughter, which are not the worst kind of tears that can happen in a group therapy, because at some point during the video, the guy doing the guided meditation told everyone listening to relax their anuses. And that is not a joke. This is a thing. This has become lore for our intensive outpatient program. This is a promise, a thing that actually happened. So I don't recommend just grabbing some random guided meditation. You want to make sure it's good. You want to make sure it comes from a legitimate source, that it's mental health beneficial and not just like some random spiritual thing that may not align with your belief systems. If guided meditation is a tool that you're interested in using to help you relax, you want to make sure it comes from a legitimate source. I currently use a guided meditation app called Happier. There are a number of reasons I really, really like it. One is it's beginner friendly. This is not an app that is designed for people who I'm going to be ridiculous and hyperbolic here, but grew up in a monastery or want to become Zen masters. It's made for a person who has not meditated or has tried and has struggled to meditate. So me, basically, and probably a lot of people with things like depression and anxiety for whom calm, relaxed states of mind do not come naturally. It has courses. It has a number of guided meditations, many of which are very, very brief. It has a large amount that are 5 minutes or less. That's been about my sweet spot. I've learned for myself personally. Longer than that, it really does not matter how much I try. My mind will start to wander, and it usually won't take very long before it wanders to something I do not want it to wander to. So if guided meditation is of interest to you, and I think it's something everyone should at least try, because it can be a really useful tool for many people. I would encourage you to check out the Happier app. They are a partner of today's video, and I will provide a link in the description if you want to check out more about how they can help you. The second psychological tool I think is really critical to use in managing your stress is buying time. And what I mean by this is, the triune brain model postulates that our brain can functionally be divided into 3 sections. And there's the brainstem, which we talked about before, which is like really basic physiological processes, nervous system regulation, that kind of thing. There's the midbrain, which contains your limbic system, your amygdala. So that's episodic memories, genesis of emotions, fight or flight response, stress response, like all that stuff's in the middle, like the panicky, nervous part of your brain. And then front third is frontal lobes. And so that's emotion regulation, behavioral inhibition, long-term planning, all our like complicated, fancy human stuff. When a stressful situation occurs, or at least a situation that could be perceived as stressful, your limbic system, your emotions, react almost instantly. It's like nanoseconds. Because again, that's where the fight or flight response is. And so if there is some kind of mortal danger happening, speed is of the essence, right? The frontal lobes, which again, they're kind of like your brakes. They're the part of your brain that's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Is this really a crisis? Is this really as bad as it feels right now? They are slower. They take a little bit longer to fully appraise a situation. And so when something happens and you just let yourself respond instantly and instinctively to it, you're responding from your limbic system, which lacks critical thinking, lacks long-term planning, lacks emotion regulation. It lacks all of the things you need to calm yourself down and respond effectively to the situation. So if you can just get in the habit of giving yourself even 5 or 10 seconds, it does not have to be a long period of time, before you respond to a stressor, you might notice that your ability to manage those stressful situations changes dramatically. Those few seconds can make a night and day difference in how you respond. So do not underestimate the power of giving yourself a little bit of time to respond. The third psychological tool I think is critical for managing our stress is boundaries. And specifically, I mean psychosocial boundaries. Not just necessarily in like I will or won't do this situations. Boundaries also help us determine what is and isn't our problem. And especially for those of us who have anxiety disorders, we tend to be really prone to a lot of like global concerns, right? Like we're not just stressed about our bank account or our house or our relationships. We're stressed about the environment and the economy. And if you're in the US right now, the election, I'm sure, is heavy on your mind. Really global, like state of the world stuff. Wars in other countries, animals going extinct. I'm not trying to be a bummer. I'm just giving examples here. This is the stuff that our brain latches onto. And it can be very, very difficult for you to really like zoom in on just what is yours. And just what, of all this stress that you're feeling, how much is actually about you? I know that all that stuff doesn't, like we live in the world. So it's not like we can just all live in our own little bubbles and have complete and total insulation from the big picture stuff. I know it doesn't work that way, but there should be a correlation between the amount of thought and emotion you invest into things and your agency or influence or control over those things. And what I see happen so often to people is so much of their time and energy gets funneled into things that they can basically not do anything about. And you end up feeling powerless and burnt out and exhausted because all these things you care about, you can't do anything about. I find questions to be a really helpful tool to help me redefine my boundaries. So I ask myself questions like, how much agency do I have over this thing? Like me personally, as the person that I am, can I really move the needle on this concern? Or is there just not a whole lot I can do? Or if there is something I do or can do, have I done it already? Again, the election is a good example. I'm technically not powerless in the US election. I can do something, which is that I can vote. And I have. I did that this morning. I am still stressed about the election. But every time that stress comes back in for me, I have to remind myself, I have taken every possible action step. I did the thing that I was supposed to do. And whatever happens now is not because of me. There's other factors in play, and that's what's going to... That doesn't make me not stressed. It does make me less stressed, though, because I at least can feel like there's nothing I need to be doing right now. It still kind of sucks, but there's nothing I need to do. So those are my 3 physiological and 3 psychological strategies. Again, some of those may not be new to you, but I promised you guys that I'd just tell you a couple tools that you can use to dramatically increase the effectiveness of those resources so that they really do make a dent in your anxiety. Those tools are stacking and chaining. Stacking your relaxation techniques means finding a way to use several of them simultaneously. So each of these things by themselves may not do that much. But when you combine a bunch of them, they have a multiplicative effect on one another. So they all kind of stack on top of one another and add up to become more than the sum of their parts. For example, if my anxiety is a 7 out of 10 today, and I do my aromatherapy, that's not going to make that might bring it down by a point, right? If I do deep breathing, that might bring it down by 2 points. If I listen to relaxing music on my phone, that might bring it down by a point. But what if I do all 3 at once? What if I do a little bit of aromatherapy for myself and then put, I don't even know if this is going to come through the microphone because mics are weird sometimes, put some lo-fi on. Vindu, favorite lo-fi artist. If you guys haven't listened to him, he's so incredible. Check him out. And then with this calming, it's already working a little bit, with this calming, relaxing aroma and this calming, relaxing music, there we go. Then I'm going to close my eyes and take some deep breaths. And when I'm stacking all of those tools on top of one another at the same time, it makes a difference. And it doesn't feel like dumping a sippy cup on a raging bonfire. It feels a little bit more like having a fire extinguisher. If you can't stack them, if you can't find a way to just throw everything all together into one single cohesive activity, another option is to chain them, which means using several one after the other. You'll probably notice when you use a relaxation technique that you hit a plateau with it at some certain point. Like I mentioned meditation again, like with the Happier app, I feel noticeably different after 5 minutes. Like 0 minutes of meditation compared to 5 minutes of meditation for me is night and day difference. The 5 to 10 minute window, I don't notice as much of a benefit. And that's probably just because I'm not a big meditator yet. It's a skill I'm still trying to practice and build up. There comes a point of diminishing returns, right? So when you get to that point where you realize, like, I think I've gotten all that I'm going to get from this tool, and I'm still pretty anxious, but this is not making it any better, then you move on to the next ones. Okay, I've done my 5-minute meditation. Now I'm going to do a 5-minute progressive muscle relaxation activity. And I'm done with that. Okay, now I'm going to spend 5 minutes reconsidering my boundaries and trying to mentally push out some of the stressors that I've identified through my boundary work and through my mindful questions do not belong to me. And it's just, 5-10 minutes each. It takes a little bit of time, right? This might take half an hour. But if that's what's going to get you functioning and feeling good the rest of the day, then that's a good time investment. So stacking and chaining your relaxation techniques will make them more than the sum of their parts and might actually make them able to stand up against the ferocity of that raging bonfire that is your anxiety. I hope that this makes sense to you guys. I hope that these tools are beneficial. I don't usually ask for this, but I probably should. Give me a follow. Subscribe if you found benefit in this. Love to see you around here again. I'm going to keep making content like this, so if it lands for you, stick around. There's more to come. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.